Madam
Yes.
Chair, pwede ba kami naman muna, hindi naman sunod-sunod na
binigyan-
sila na lang. Madam Chair, please.
So, Madam
I'd
Chair,
I'd
so
like
wala
to,
pa naman po
before
tayo
you proceed,
sa...
before
May
you
I
proceed,
raise a
before you proceed,
parliamentary
conference,
inquiry, Madam Chair?
before you proceed,
Congressman Rodante Marcoleta, pinangaralan ang mga kapwa congressman. Vice Presidente Sara Duterte, nabastos sa Kongreso dahilan kung bakit ito hindi sumipot sa pagdinig sa Senado. Pero bago ang lahat, maaari kayong mag-subscribe para maging updated sa mga issue at bagong mga balita. Sermon ngang inabot ni Congresswoman Castro at iba pang kongresista mula kay Congressman Marcoleta. Matapos nga nilang pagtulong-tulungang bastusin ng Vice Presidente sa nakaraang hearing ukol sa budget ng Office of the Vice President. Ayon pa kay Congressman Marcoleta, kaya umano di dumalo ang Vice Presidente sa naging pagdinig dahil sa binastos lamang nila ang pangalawang pinuno ng bansa. At yun nga, ay doon lamang umano siya nakasaksi ng hindi paggalang ng kapwa niya kongresista sa pangalawang pangulo ng bansa, kahit pa sa tinagal-tagal na niya sa institusyon. Ayon pa sa balita, Marcoleta calls out lawmakers for not giving courtesy to OVP. Sige Party List Representative Rodante Marcoleta on Tuesday called out lawmakers for not observing the tradition of giving courtesy to the office of the Vice President, as the Appropriations Panel proceed to discuss the agency's proposed budget without Vice President Sara Duterte. After lawmakers delayed the hearing for an hour to wait for any OVP representative, Marikina 2nd District Representative Stella Quimbo decided to start the deliberations without Duterte or any official from the OVP. The Vice President skipped the hearing. I suppose it was because of what happened during the last hearing. I have heard the volume and the barrage of questions asked by a member of this committee to Vice President. Despite the fact, Madam Chair, I have heard several times saying, I forgot the opportunity of defending the OVP budget for 2025 by question and answer, and I leave it to the House of Representatives to decide on such a proposals as presented, Marcoleta said. My question now, because of what happened to the budget of the OVP, and despite her manifestation that she will no longer defend her budget, we cannot even accept such kind of answer, Madam Chair. What do we need here to articulate? Is there no respect for this tradition now? He asked.
Vice President attended.
Yes, Madam Chair, that's true.
Okay. So,
Point of inquiry, Madam Chair.
yes, please proceed, Congressman.
Madam Chair, so ibig sabihin wala po ni isa na dumating from the Office of the Vice President para sumagot ng mga tanong ng ating mga colleagues, Madam Chair.
That is correct.
Madam Chair, kahapon kasi hindi na kami pinagtanong sa Office of the President. Tapos ngayon naman, wala naman yung Office of the Vice President para tanungin namin, Madam Chair. So Madam Chair, hindi ko maintindihan kung bakit yung two highest position in the land natin ganito sa ating budget hearing sa Kongreso, no? Madam Chair, isang insulto sa mamamayang Pilipino at sa mga kinatawan dito sa loob ng Kongreso na hinalal ng mamamayan. Ano? Ang hiling natin makapagpaliwanag ng accountability at ang hiling natin ay maglinaw, no, ng mga, kasi marami pa po tayong tanong kaugnay dito. She may not like our questions last hearing, Madam Chair. She may not like being questioned about the OVP expenses. She may not like sitting with us here in the House. But Madam Chair, she is accountable to the people and she has this sworn duty to the Constitution, being the head of the agency, to be here, no, para po ipagtanggol or malaman natin yung budget niya, Madam Chair. So yun lang, Madam Chair, as a manifestation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, may I manifest also?
Congressman? Sorry, conference.
Madam
Yes,
Chair, pwede ba kami naman muna, hindi naman sunod-sunod na
binigyan-
sila na lang. Madam Chair, please.
So, Madam
I'd
Chair,
I'd
so
like
wala
to,
pa naman po
before
tayo
you
sa...
proceed, before
May
you
I
proceed,
raise a
before you proceed,
parliamentary
conference,
inquiry, Madam Chair?
before you proceed, I'd like to remind our members for orderly proceedings, please wait to be acknowledged
Yes,
before
ma'am,
you speak.
pero-
So sa ngayon po, dahil nauna po si Kong Franz, paunahin na muna natin siya. So Kong Franz, please proceed.
puro sila
And
na
then
po
I will
yung-
recognize you after. Kong Dante.
Magkakasunod, Madam eh.
Medyo nauna lang po siya ng 1
Di
second po.
ba, di ba
Kong
ang
Dante.
ating tradition, unang minority, pagkatas majority?
Wala pa po
sunod-sunod
tayo sa
naman
interpolation,
sila.
Kong
Oo nga
Dante.
po, pero maski na sa manifestation, dapat ganun din.
Nauna lang po siya, so yes po. Kong Franz, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, ang ibig sabihin nito ay kahit na binigyan natin ang Office of the Vice President na second round, no? Second time around na magpaliwanag do sa budget at magkaroon tayo ng pagkakataon na siya ay matanong dahil ito naman po talaga yung mandato natin dito sa Kongreso, no? Mabusisi yung budget. So, ang ibig sabihin po nito ay binoboykot niya tayo. Pagboboykot ito, Madam Chair, dahil wala pang akong natatandaan na ahensya ng gobyerno o executive branch na binoykot ang Kongreso dito sa budget hearing and deliberation. So ang ibig sabihin, Madam Chair, betrayal of her oath of office. Kahapon nakita ko yung kanyang video na ginagalang niya yung power of the purse ng Kongreso. Alam niya na tayo po yung nag-allocate or nagbabudget or nag-approve ng budget ng lahat ng ahensya. So dahil pinapaubaya niya na sa atin ito, na hindi niya man lang i-defend, kasi ang laki-laki nung, Madam Chair, yung budget for socio-economic program delivery, socio-economic projects and stakeholder, ang ibig sabihin ba niyan, inaabandona niya na yung pinaplano niya siguro na ng mga constituents niya, nabibigyan niya nitong mga programs na ito. So, Madam Chair, so, ang problema dito, no, talagang bratinela to the max, no, na ayaw na ngang matanong, no, umiiwas sa mga tanong, at eto pa, no, kapag gusto nating tanungin, hindi uma-attend doon sa no. Kaya talagang Madam Chair, siguro later on, kung ano yung later on na lang po, Madam Chair, yung aking magiging pasya, no, dito sa magiging budget at recommendation sa budget ng OBP. So, pasensya na po ang taong bayan, binoykot tayo ng Vice President.
Salamat, Kong Franz. Kong Marcoleta, you're now recognized.
Salamat po, Madam Chair. Yung hindi po pagdating ng ating pangalawang Pangulo ngayon, ang suspecha ko po ay dahil sa nangyari na mga pagtatanong nung nakaraang pagdinig. I have heard the volume and the barrage of questions asked by members of this committee to the Vice President. Despite the fact, Madam Chair, I heard her several times saying, I forgo the opportunity of defending the OBP budget for 2025 by question and answer, and I leave it to the House of Representatives to decide on such proposal as presented. That was the template of an answer given by the Office of the Vice President. Madam Chair, napilitan po akong mag-raise ng parliamentary inquiry. I think I have earned this. If I survive my term up to next year, I would have survived also, or I would have completed 18 years in this institution. And in this length of time, I have observed a tradition. The tradition is the two highest positions of government, namely the Office of the Vice President and the Office of the President, are not traditionally subjected to questions. I have observed this for so long a time. May I refresh the memory of the members of this committee, Madam Chair. In 2022, the Minority Leader, Honorable Libanan, citing courtesy to the office of the Vice President, took only about 13 minutes to move for determination of the budget of the Vice President. And after that, the Majority Leader seconded the motion. That was 2022, Madam Chair. Then 2023, no less than the Presidential son, our own Senior Deputy Majority Leader, the Honorable Sandro Marcos, stood up and invoked the long-honored tradition of according courtesy to the OBP, the Office of the Vice President. And in the same manner, he moved for determination of the Office of the Budget, the consideration of the budget of the Office of the President, Vice President. I also recall, Madam Chair, that it was terminated. And with the full consternation of Honorable Franz Castro, who then objected, but her objections were never heard until she moved to make up record by way of manifestation her objection. But the committee collectively said, you can no longer do that because there was already a termination of the hearing. This is the time-honored tradition, Madam Chair. For so long a time, we have kept and observed this. We have upheld this tradition. My question is this committee authorized to set aside or discard the tradition? That is the question.
Your Honor, such motion was not introduced in the last hearing.
I'm now introducing the motion, Madam Chair.
I
To
second,
terminate-
Madam Chair.
To terminate the consideration of the budget of the Vice President, Madam Chair, on the basis of the long and time-honored tradition, Madam Chair. In order for us to respect a tradition in the same manner that we have respected the tradition here that the first to interpolate every time is the member of the minority. That is the tradition. We have not yet discarded that. We're observing that because we are honorable members of this Congress. So the question is, why have we discarded that tradition? Is this committee authorized to set aside the tradition? If we are not able to do that, Madam Chair, then I honorably, respectfully now move to terminate consideration of the budget of the Office of the Vice President, and I so move.
Second,
Madam
Madam
Chair.
Chair.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, Madam Chair, Madam Chair,
Move and seconded.
Session suspended. hearing is hereby resumed.
Madam Chair, I objected to the motion, and may I explain why?
We will take that up after we respond to the Honorable Marcoleta.
Thank you, Madam
But yes,
Chair.
we note that you made an objection, but your mic was off. So, the Honorable Marcoleta, please repeat your inquiry.
Yes, in connection to the earlier parliamentary inquiry, Madam Chair, I have already related the value of tradition. Parliamentary procedures, Madam Chair, grow from or are enriched by traditions, experiences, and precedents collectively gathered by the House of Representatives over years, and the institution keeps them well. That is why, from my entry in 2004 or the 13th Congress until today, I have observed the observance of that well-kept tradition. The two highest positions in government, namely the office of the President and the office of the Vice President, were duly accorded with respect and deference. I have observed that. That's why I have relayed to you earlier, in 2022, the Honorable Libanan, invoking courtesy, took him only 13 minutes to dispose the office of the Vice President. And that was quickly moved, quickly seconded by no less than our majority leader. That was in 2022. I'm not going by record, Madam Chair. 2023, I said, no less than the presidential son, our own senior deputy majority leader, stood up and said that in line with the time-honored tradition of according courtesy to the office of the Vice President, I move to terminate the budget briefing of the OBP. And I can recall the Honorable Castro strongly objected. No, that's in 2023. This is by the record. And she objected, but her objections were rejected by the committee because the committee already terminated the proceedings. And she kept on requesting, Madam Chair, that she makes at least her manifestation. And she was unable to do that because the proceedings were terminated. So that, what I am saying, from 2004, when I entered these halls, these hallowed halls, hanggang punto sa sinasabi kong 2023, we have kept the tradition. Ngayon po, kung ano-ano ng mga tanong ang ginawa, in 2023, 22 minutes. 2022, 13 minutes. Ito po, pinagawayan na po yung budget earlier at ngayon we're about to quarrel again on the budget. Ang tanong ko nga po ngayon, dahil nga po sa nangyayari ngayon sa budget ng Office of the Vice President, and despite her manifestation that she will no longer defend her budget because she forgo, sabi niya, I will forgo my opportunity to defend the budget of the OBP for 2025 by way of question and answer, and I will leave to the House of Representatives to decide such proposal as presented. We cannot even accept such kind of answer, Madam Chair. What do we need her to articulate for? So ang pinag-uusapan po natin, wala na po ba yung respeto sa tradisyon na yun? Kagaya po ng binabanggit ko, every time mag-i-interpolate po dito, Madam Chair, because of that tradition, it's always the member of the minority who will start the interpolation because we have kept that tradition. Ang dami po. Ang dami ko pang sasabihin sa inyo, haba lang tayo. So the question is, when we did that to the Vice President earlier, now we're doing it now, are we now setting aside this tradition? That's number one question. Number two, is this committee authorized to set aside the tradition?
Your Honor, short answer is no to both questions.
Okay. If that is the answer, Madam Chair, and we are all bound to respect one tradition so sacred in our hearts, because we are called honorables in this house. We cannot be honorables if we cannot honor our own tradition. We are defined by what we believe as a tradition in this house. So if we are now all amenable that we have kept that tradition, no longer questions are being asked, then I will respectfully move, Madam Chair, to terminate the budget of the OBP for 2025.
I object, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you.
I object.
Madam Chair, I
There's a
object.
motion to terminate the budget briefing of the OVP, but there is an objection, so we divide the House. The chair has decided to divide the House. So those
Madam Chair,
in favor
as
of the motion.
as a rule, we usually deliberate
Those-
before we vote.
Those in favor
We deliberate.
of the motion, please raise your hand. Those in favor of the motion to terminate the budget briefing of the OVP, please raise your hand.
All those against.
Those who are not in favor of terminating, raise your hand.
For non-tradition. Okay. 3 in favor, 45 against.
3 in favor, 45 against.
Motion is
The motion
lost.
is
Lost.
lost.
Madam Chair, I thought we have kept the tradition. The tradition is no longer ask any question. That was the tradition. So why are you voting against the motion?
The majority of the will
It's-
is
it's-
always respect.
It's
The will of the
inconsistent
majority
with the
is always
tradition that
respected.
we have already agreed to observe.
So we will
Yes, Madam
proceed
Chair.
to the next.
You mentioned earlier that we will keep up the tradition. You said no. Earlier,
For
now
orderly
we voted
proceedings, I
against.
remind the members to please wait to be recognized before speaking. So, the chair now recognizes the
Madam
budget
Chair.
sponsor, the Honorable Zia Adyong, to give a recap of what transpired in the last hearing.
Madam Chair,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, before
Madam Chair.
we proceed with Vice Chair Adjong, can I
Yes,
explain my vote, Madam Chair?
Paduano?
Can I explain my vote? Why I voted against the motion of the Honorable Marcoleta? Just a short lang.
You have 1 minute.
Thank you po. Madam Chair, tama po. During the previous hearing, wala pong nag-move to terminate the budget. That's number 1 po of the OBP. Number 2 po, the demand or the answers being given by the Vice President during the time. Personally, it does not satisfy this representation. Thirdly, Madam Chair, the courtesy being given to the Office of the Vice President is afforded if she is present in the day's hearing. How can you give that courtesy when Faki is absent in the day's hearing, Madam Chair? I might change my vote for that, but
Was the President of the
are
Philippines
you
present?
recognized?
Please.
Congressman?
Please
I am
wait
about
to
to
be
be recognized,
recognized.
Madam Chair.
Please wait to be recognized. Please proceed, Kong Paduano. You
You're
have
not
30
yet recognized,
seconds.
Marcoleta. Madam Chair, maybe I will change my vote if the for the motion Marcoleta if the Vice President is present in today's hearing. But he's absent. How can I personally vote for that? Because he's not present in today's hearing, Madam Chair, and that courtesy should be given to those head of office that should be present during the budget deliberation, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
So, Kong Zia, you're now recognized. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Majority Leader, Representative Manix Dalipe, Committee Chair Saldico, members, honorable members of this committee, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Good morning po sa ating lahat and welcome to the continuation of the budget briefing of the proposed 2025 budget for the Office of the Vice President. Madam Chair, in the previous hearing for fiscal year 2025, the Office of the Vice President proposed a budget of 2,037,305. As of the most recent report, the OVP has an obligation rate of 39.9% for 2024. During the last budget briefing, several topics were propounded that the committee sought to be clarified upon. First, members of the committee asked the Office of the Vice President regarding the notice of disallowance issued by COA for the confidential funds released in 2022 indicated that 73 million pesos or 58.6% of total was not utilized in compliance with Joint Memorandum Circular 2015-01 of COA, DBM, DILG, GCG, and DND. The Commission on Audit has ordered the disallowed amount to be returned. Second, several members of the committee examined the grounds for the disallowance. The COA report stated that this was due to non-compliance with guidelines and the non-submission of supporting evidence or documents. Third, it was noted by members of the committee that the 125 million pesos confidential fund for the fiscal year 2022 was utilized from December 1 to December 31 of the same year, in 2022. A common comment by members, Madam Chair, was that this short period of time within which a huge amount of fund is spent raised further clarificatory questions on the validity of the spending. Fourth, members of the committee raised that there were supposed duplications between the Office of the Vice President's medical and burial assistance programs and those provided by the DOH and the SWD. Clarifications were sought on how these overlaps would be addressed to ensure the proper use of resources. Fifth, there were inquiries about the accessibility of various OVP programs, such as the Educational Assistance Program, the Kalusugan Food Truck, and the Magnegosyo Taday initiative for MSMEs. The committee sought further information on how these programs align with the OVP's mandate. And lastly, Madam Chair, the committee requested an explanation of how the OVP's programs reflect its constitutional mandate and whether the proposed 2025 budget will support continued progress in these areas. That would be all, Madam Chair, and I would yield back the floor to the Senior Vice Chair, Representative Stella Quimbo. Maraming salamat po at magandang umaga po sa ating lahat.
So we shall begin interpellation. Siyempre nakakalungkot na wala tayong representatives mula sa OVP, pero muli meron tayong representatives mula sa DBM at COA. And again, I would like to
Madam Chair.
Remind our members that you each have 5 minutes for your interpellation, and to remind our resource persons that those 5 minutes will not include your responses. And so the first
Madam
to
Chair.
interpellate from the minority, we have the Honorable Ramon Rodrigo Gutierrez. You have 5 minutes. The floor is yours, Kong Rog.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning po to our resource persons from the COA and the DBM. Madam Chair, this representation, first and foremost, laments the fact that the Office of the Vice President has failed to appear today. We lament the fact that, as I understand, the committee actually extended courtesy. In the letter, it was indicated that the Vice President may or may not attend. However, it is required that a representative be here. Unfortunately, not even a representative is present here, kahit USEC man lang, ASEC, not even a director, for us to be answer questions. As a personal courtesy to the Office of the Vice President and understanding her responses from the last hearing, this representation has opted to question mostly the budget of 2023 regarding the regular budget. But even then, unfortunately, it would seem that the OVP is not here for us to question. So but in line with their duty in the House for the deliberation of the budget, I will carry on with my questions. Siguro po dito na lang si COA because coincidentally my questions are precisely on the COA report. So with that, Madam Chair, we'll be now proceeding with my questioning to the COA.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
What is your point of order? And please explain the rule that is violated.
The rule violated, Madam Chair, is our tradition. You just upheld that the tradition will be respected. And so, if questions will still be asked, then the tradition that we have kept so well, that you have said that we're not about to discard right now, will be disrespected again. I thought we understood each other.
Kong Marcoleta, we had already voted earlier on that issue.
That's
on
another
tradition,
matter,
so
Madam Chair.
Your point is not well taken. Please proceed, Kong Rog.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So